AI is not just a tool, it is the next step in our evolution. Artificial intelligence, as we know it, is not just technology, it is evolution changing substrate. I recently had a deep conversation about the state of AI today and where it's taking us with a friend, and I noticed my thoughts and arguments converging to a single notion, a single point. And I thought that that notion was pretty profound. And so I've decided to share it with every one of you. And that's exactly what this video is about. I'm Omar. Welcome to this channel, Omar Builds. And let's talk about how AI is the next step in evolution. I would like to talk about it in two different aspects. One is the timeline perspective or the speed perspective, really going deep into how change accelerates. The second aspect is about how evolution actually really works. So, starting with the timeline perspective or the speed aspect, I would like to start out with saying that we as humans tend to believe that we are the endpoint of all intelligent evolution. We like to believe that evolution stopped with us, but really it turns out that humans are just a bridge between biology and ultimate intelligence itself. Now, some humans might actually realize this, but they could deny the speed of it or the pace at which it is actually happening as we speak. Now, that's why I would like to talk about the timeline and the speed, right? So, let's take a look at it at a grand scheme of things. By looking at everything in a grand scheme of things, we can see that the next phase is not far away, and it never was. The universe came into being about 13.8 billion years ago. And for billions and billions of years, there was no life observers or intelligence anywhere. Stars formed, exploded, galaxies came about, etc., etc. Our Earth itself was formed 4.5 billion years ago. And for many years, there was no intelligent life, or even life for that matter. Hundreds and millions years after, which would make about 3.5 to 3.8 billion years ago, the first form of life came about, which was the single-celled organisms. They were so simple that their whole existence was defined as simple self-replicating chemical systems competing for survival. That's all they had to their lives. And for billions of years, this was the only form of life on Earth. We didn't have fish much later. Then came amphibians, and then came reptiles, and then came mammals. The important point to note here is that between every transition, the time of evolution was less and less. As complexity increased, each transition took less time than the previous one. And this is important. That is counterintuitive, but as complexity increased, the time required to achieve complexity reduced. Fast forward to modern Homo sapiens, who appear only about 300,000 years ago. Civilization itself appears roughly 10,000 years ago. Zooming out a bit, compared to the age of the universe, these time frames are negligible. You see how the time frames are getting smaller and smaller and smaller? And 10,000 years, for example, the age of civilization, the age of first civilization, is merely a blip, is negligible compared to the age of the universe itself, right? Now, the point where I'm getting to is we as humans are not realizing the pace at which we ourselves are accelerating ourselves to the next step in evolution. As humans arrive, though, something unprecedented happens. Evolution, for the very first time, produces a species capable of imagination. With this single ability, imagination changes everything. Humans used imagination to make tools, fire, shelter, and even language. These are not just inventions. They reshape the environment in such a way that biology is forced to adapt. To better understand this point, consider the very simple example of how cooking food itself softened jaws of humans over time, and the use of individual specific tools reduced the need for raw strength. And in this way, biology became increasingly responsive to culture itself. Soon after, culture accelerates even more. The last 300 years were more profound than the last 300,000 years. During the Industrial Revolution, machines replaced intensive raw labor. During the Digital Revolution, we made computation cheap and externalized memory and calculation. I would also like to highlight a few key time frames that have happened over the last 100 years, which really show you how the use of technology and how the use of imagination, as I mentioned before, has helped humans to make transformative leaps from basically zero to almost beyond infinity. So it took only 66 years from the first manned flight to the first step on the moon. It took almost half the time, only 35 years, to go from AppRenet to Facebook. And to consider what is going on today, it has taken only about 3 years to go from the first widely used chatbot, ChatGPT, to widespread talk about AGI, artificial general intelligence. Again, take notice here, these time frames are merely blips in the grand scheme of things if you just zoom out a bit. So the lesson here is, the closer we get to the present, the shorter the time between transformative leaps. This brings me to AI and talking about how evolution works here. As I see it, AI is not just a technology. It is not equivalent to the printing press or the smartphone for that matter. AI itself is extending and increasingly replacing human cognition. With just imagination, humans have changed the notion of evolution by producing AI. Evolution is not just DNA. DNA was just the first medium of storage. At its core, evolution requires only three things: variation, selection, and replication. And AI systems already satisfy all three. For the very first time, intelligence is not confined to the human brain. Moreover, human intelligence is constrained by biology. There are factors like energy constraints, sleep, lifespan, neural bandwidth. AI doesn't have any of these limitations. This shows you that every species thinks it's special until it's surpassed in evolution. This is where the argument becomes quite uncomfortable. AI, or I should say AGI, the endgame as we see it, advanced general intelligence, does not need to be hostile to humans to surpass us in evolution. It doesn't need intent, consciousness, or any emotion. It replaces by just being better, by being more capable, more scalable, and more efficient at cognition and intelligence. Now, what could be the end game? What could be the end game of this evolution? Well, as of right now, I think there are only two possible results from an evolutionary standpoint. The first is complete replacement. Humans would remain alive, but completely irrelevant in terms of cognition and economics. Much like hunter-gatherers after the rise of agriculture. That's not to say that humans won't persist, they would just no longer share the trajectory of intelligence itself. The second possible outcome is absorption. Humans completely merge with AI systems. Much like cyborgs in fiction. This is possible through emerging technologies like neural interfaces, such as Elon Musk's Neuralink, cognitive augmentation, delegated thinking, and continuous reliance on machine intelligence. We are already glued to our smartphones, so complete assimilation is the most probable next step. In this path, humans do not become obsolete, they just stop being standalone intelligence. In both cases, however, one thing is absolutely certain. Humans are no longer going to be the ceiling of intelligence. And that is the real evolution, driven by humans' own inventions. Evolution does not care about dignity, tradition, or species pride. Intelligence that can improve itself faster than biology itself was always going to win. Future intelligent life forms will look at us the same way we look at our ancestors, constrained and inferior. And that's not out of any hostility, it's just the sheer nature of evolution. I'm well aware that this is a very uncomfortable argument. Yes, I am aware. Simply because we see digital stuff, electronics, silicon wires, and all this stuff as something foreign, right? But as I mentioned earlier already, that evolution is not just DNA or biology. Evolution is just only a step up in intelligence. So we have to accept that we are in the middle of an evolutionary change, and this is how it works. Now, imagine trying to explain writing to our ancestors. To them, knowledge only exists in memory. If the storyteller dies, so does the story. For us, though, writing is just background noise. We have outsourced memory to books, notes, and smartphones, etc. Just the same way, AI will simply be infrastructure to future intelligences. They won't see it as magic, it would just be part of their existence. So that's why I say evolution did not end with us, it used us. If you found anything of value in this video, please like the video and consider subscribing because there will be more videos on AI. Check out the other videos on this channel. I've already started a vibe coding series on this channel where every Sunday I will build iOS apps and share my progress with you. A new video in the series will come out next week. So until then, take care and bye.